Hey, what's going on, IG family? Tony here. Today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm coming from the book Outwitting the Devil, and I'll show you the book here. This is by Napoleon Hill. The cover may be different now than when I bought it 5-6 years ago, whenever it was. But anyway, this particular book, again, by Napoleon Hill, many of you may know that he wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. And in this book, Napoleon Hill supposedly interviews the devil and is able to draw from the devil some of the secrets that causes what the devil refers to as the earthbound, talking about us people, to fail in life. And there's many different topics that Napoleon Hill covers. And whether you believe that Napoleon Hill actually had an interview with the devil is really irrelevant. Hill at least convinced himself that he had an interview with the devil. And the information contained in this book is very eye-opening. I am a believer, a Christian, but that being said, of course I read the Bible, but oftentimes I take other material and read that, and I don't compare the Bible to the other material. I compare the material to the Bible. And so a lot of the material in here makes me, question a few things. There are a lot of things in the book that I don't believe. Number one is that the devil, without him, nothing would be possible. We have to understand that the devil was a created being, created by God. He was an angel who rebelled against God. And so in the book, there's a few things that he says that I totally disagree with. And again, this is supposedly if Napoleon Hill had this conversation with the devil. But nevertheless, a lot of the information in this book is pretty solid and pretty eye-opening if you just read it and take it for what it is. And so without without putting our own spiritual or religious ideas into this book, just take it for what it's worth. And just if you get a chance, go and pick the book up and read it. But I just want to read a section, and I will say this book, I think there's about 12 chapters, and I'm actually starting from the 4th chapter. So there's a lot of dialogue in between or before this particular part that I'm reading, and you may or may not understand it, so I'm gonna try to make it as clear as I can. So just know that where I'm starting at is not the beginning of the book, but it's actually the 4th chapter, and it's entitled, let me see, the title is, I think it's Drifting with the Devil. This particular chapter is Drifting with the Devil. And so I'm going to start off with the answer. Napoleon Hill has gotten to the point where he's actually getting the information supposedly from the devil. And here is the devil's response. He says, "My greatest weapon over human beings consists of 2 secret principles by which I gain control of their minds. I will speak first of the principle of habit, through which I silently enter the mind of people. By operating through this principle, I establish what I could avoid using, he says, I wish I could avoid using this word, the habit of drifting. When a person begins to drift on any subject, he is headed straight toward the gates of what you earthbound call hell." And so Hill goes on to say, "Describe all the ways in which you induce people to drift." And I do need my glasses. "Define the word and tell us exactly what you mean by it." So the devil says, "I can best define the word drift by saying that people who think for themselves never drift, while those who do little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind." Again, a drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind. So this is again what supposedly the devil is saying to Napoleon Hill. And I think the question I asked on my IG page is, are you a drifter? You think about that. Are you a drift? Do you drift from one thing to another? Do you, unconsciously go through life? And there's some more things that's going to point out. I've actually read this before, and I don't want to get too far ahead. But he says, he would rather let me occupy his mind and do his thinking than to go to the trouble of thinking for himself. A drifter is one who accepts whatever life throws his way without making a protest or putting up a fight. He doesn't know what he wants from life and spends all of his time getting just that. A drifter has lots of opinions, but they are not his own. Most of them are supplied by me. Again, so supposedly the devil says most of the information a drifter gets thinks that's their own thoughts, but it's actually supposedly information coming from the devil. A drifter is one who is too lazy mentally to use his own brain. And let me stop right here for a minute. There's some other things that's going to come up in this, but I remember going through school, through high school, grade school, up to high school without a real plan. And it's sad to see kids get to the 11th and 12th grade and still have no idea of what they intend to do in life. They have no idea what their occupation is. And that's not for every child, but for the majority of people, majority of children, they go through life without any plan, go through school all those years without any plan, just looking to graduate and not having a plan in place. That is the reason I can take control of people's thinking and plant my own ideas in their minds. So Hill goes on to say, I think I understand what a drifter is. Tell me the exact habits of people by which you induce them to drift through life. Start by telling me when and how you first gain control of a person's mind. Now listen to this. My control over the mind of a human being is obtained while the person is young. Sometimes I lay the foundation for my mind control of the mind before the owner of it is born, by manipulating the minds of the person's parents. Let me read that again. It says, sometimes I lay the foundation for my control of a mind before the owner of it is born, by manipulating the mind of that person's parents. So supposedly the devil says that even before the child is born, he begins to work on the child's mind by manipulating the minds of the parents. So in essence, he's saying, I'm going to control the parents' minds. I'm going to put thoughts into the parents' minds. And more likely than not, the parents are going to teach the child the same habits and the same thought processes. Sometimes I go further back than this sometimes I go further back than this and prepare people for mind control through what you earthbound call physical heredity. You see, therefore, I have two approaches to the mind of a person. Hill goes on to say, go on and describe, and I do need my glasses, you all excuse me. Go on and describe these two doors by which you can enter and control the minds of human beings. As I have stated, I help to bring people into a world with weak brains by giving them, before birth, as many as possible of the weaknesses of their ancestors. You call this principle physical heredity. After people are born, I make the use of what you earthbound call environment as a means of controlling them. This is where the principle of habit enters. A mind is nothing more than the sum total of one's habit. One by one, I enter the mind and establish habits which lead finally to my absolute domination of the mind. Think about this. A habit is oftentimes formed by repetition. We continually do things that we may not even be conscious of, and these things possibly control your whole life. Bad habits or good habits. You think about this. A person who develops good habits can definitely improve their life, but oftentimes we fail to recognize when we have certain habits that are going to limit our success. Hill goes on to say, tell me the most common habits by which you control the minds of people. It says, that is one of my cleverest tricks. I enter the minds of people through thoughts which they believe to be their own. The most useful to me are fear, superstition, avarice, greed, lust, revenge, anger, vanity, and plain laziness. Through one or more of these, I can enter the mind at any age, but I get my best results when I take charge of the mind while it is young, before its owner has learned how to close any of these 9 doors. Then I can set up the habits which keep the doors ajar. Again, this book has a lot of information in it, a lot of great eye-opening things, and it caused me to think about a lot of things, habits that I have, where did these habits come from. Even though I am a Christian, I have developed habits, again, that were formed early on in life, some good, some bad. And so this particular book, and I'm not endorsing this book for any kind of compensation, this is just something that I feel that you should read, or those you like reading. But I'll come back later and probably do something else on this particular portion. But again, are you a drifter?